Everyone, welcome back to Transfers Explained here on the Goonerverse. First of all, I just want to apologise we didn't get a shout out yesterday. That was all me. It was a last minute change of plans. Things came up. Thank you to Ben for being so flexible about it. And apologies to everyone. We had hit the Monday slot for the first 3 weeks. And I promised to do my best to get it back out on the Monday as well next week. But we still managed to get here and do a podcast early in the week. And actually, there's kind of been more news. So dare I say, maybe it's not a bad thing because there's quite a lot we want to go through. But yeah, apologies for the delay. That's all on my end. Apologies. But good to see you, Ben. How was your weekend, mate? And it's another week of Arsenal getting very little done. But there's still plenty to chat about, to be fair. How are you feeling? I mean, how are you in general? But also, are you starting to creep into the panic stage of Arsenal's window? I mean, panic might be a strong word, but is that concern for you?
Not right now, no. But for me, I tend to take a bit longer because I'm just thinking we're hearing a lot of the stuff around, and this seems like there's very concrete names like, Šeško was the striker that we've just been hearing about for ages, and then Rodrygo's the winger that we've been hearing about for a while. So you're getting a lot of the right sort of names. It's just getting over the line. And it's the reason I'm a little bit more patient this year, I think, is just because we've got Berta, so I don't know what to expect. He's going to come to operate completely differently to Edu, so you have to wait and see, really. But a lot of the links have been the right type of players, but that's been the case every window. So yeah, as long as we get like at least, so obviously Zubimendi, Kepa, but then at least one more in before pre-season, then that should be good, and one during pre-season or something like that. But yeah, I'm okay. But yeah, in general, yeah, I'm good. I like sometimes if you do it, when we do it slightly later, there's a couple bits of news that have come out during, or sometimes when we've recorded and then when it comes out, there's something that comes out in between.
Yeah,
or like a random thing. So sometimes like now, we're like, we're on it with all of that as well.
Well, then actually, maybe that's something to consider. Maybe Tuesdays might even be better for this podcast because you get kind of Tuesday morning debriefs and Monday stuff as well. So yeah, anyway, something to consider. We'll chat about that. I am entering a slight period of concern, if I'm really honest. Because I'm starting to look at certain reports and thinking, I'm not sure how I feel about this. I'll give you an example. Šeško Gyokeres. The first episode we did on this podcast was a breakdown of Šeško because at the time I was so convinced that was the direction they wanted to go in. And I wasn't totally convinced that they were definitely going to do that deal because it'd be very Arsenal to go, oh, well, Gyokeres is 60 million, Šeško is 80 million, so we'll do that one. Like, that would be totally Arsenal. However, I just thought they had a clear number one, and I wanted us to try and explain why. Now, as time's gone by, while I still think they prefer Šeško, I'm actually starting to think that, no, maybe they don't actually know which one they definitely want to do. And they really are just juggling the deals and juggling all potential eventualities until they eventually sort of decide which one works best for them, which, I have to be honest, the 24th of June kind of concerns me. I think you should know more who you absolutely want. And my issue is that if it was Šeško and Watkins they were juggling, I'd kind of understand, because Sesko's maybe a £75 million player with potential. Watkins is a maybe £50 million player who's kind of ready to deliver now. But they are quite similar in that you can expect them to play similar areas of the pitch. Gyokeres, for me, is someone you play a very different way if you've got Victor Gyokeres up front. Now, I'm not saying Watkins and Šeško are the same player. They're not. But I think you could somewhat use them in the same way, whereas Gyokeres feels very, very different. So I'm a bit like, how does Mikel feel about this? He doesn't really know which 9 he's going to be given, nor how he's going to have to use them, unless he looks at Gyokeres and thinks, no, I could turn him into much more of what I'm asking Kai Havertz to do. Are those concerns there for you? Do you look at it and go, these are very different players, and at some point you have to know quite quickly which one you want, because Arteta's got to prepare for that.
Yeah, I think the main similarity with the three of them is the fact that they'll want to play or at least what it should be with all of them. Šeško needs to work on this a little bit, but I think this is the aim of him, is that they'll all want to play on the shoulder and they'll want to be the last man in, stretching the defence, constantly running in behind, making those runs. Whereas Havertz is a bit more, he'll drop deep, he'll try and link players. And all three of them can have decent link-up play, different varying levels, but they do that for their current teams. But the big difference is having someone that is going to make those runs, and that the main thing on their mind is scoring goals, rather than, it's spoken before about having a striker that connects the team, or someone who is kind of the head of the team, like a Haaland type, where he's not there to link players, he's there to make the runs and score a bunch of goals. And that's the difference with these three. So although there are differences, I see that similarity throughout, and how they fit just as in various different ways on the other sides of their game. So I think with a Šeško, you've got the potential of him aerially and his ball striking as well, shooting from different angles. And with Watkins, he's a bit more of your fox in the box type. And with Gyokeres, he's probably the best out of them. Him and Šeško probably the best at the pressing side, and he'll make constant runs. He's got a bit more of that. The difference with someone like Gyokeres, he's got a bit more of that mean side to him. So there's definitely differences to them all, but I'm not necessarily too worried. It's just about, can you get them in early as possible? Because I think whoever comes in, if it's not Watkins, I think the others might. It's not that they'll take a long time to adapt. It's just, we need to get used to, they're going to come to a new league, but they're also, as a team, we're going to play differently. So we've got to get used to like how smooth we can make these combinations and how quickly we can. But it's weird. To be honest, I'm more excited about it because I'm thinking about it in pre-season. Imagine if you've got, let's say, one of these strikers in by pre-season, and then you've got Zubimendi in, and then you've got Nwaneri playing a lot. Maybe Max Dowman's going to be on the pre-season, and then maybe you get the winger in time as well, and you start seeing that, and we're going to be playing a lot more direct and exciting. I feel like we might look like that, was it 22-23 season?
Yeah,
where we just played really good football. So yeah, I can see us playing a lot more direct like that at times. So yeah, I think the worries are, it makes sense. I get it, and it's taken a bit too long, but I think this Club World Cup has made it look worse than it is.
Yeah, fine. I hear what you're saying. I mean, yeah, it's a good way to look at it. I mean, I'm excited for pre-season. I think having Newcastle, AC Milan, and Tottenham out on the tour, I think is really good. I think there's going to be three good competitive games. They're going to work us hard. I think it will come at a stage of pre-season, especially that Northumberland derby, where Arsenal and Arteta will want they'll want us to be ready and looking good. It reminds me of that Chelsea game out in Orlando where we battered them 4-0, and you could tell that Arsenal were playing it like they were saying, "Look, show the world you're ready." And that was a couple of weeks before the season started. And yeah, I think that kind of that stuff I'm excited for, because I really believe the striker will be in by then. I actually think Zubimendi, all that, we can be excited about that. I want to pick you up on something you said though. You said Gyokeres is one of the best on the pressing side. Now, we haven't done a big breakdown on Gyokeres yet. Obviously, if it looks like that's what we're going to do, then of course we'll absolutely do that. We did the Šeško one because I was feeling that was what was going to happen, and it looks like my reading on that might be wrong. Talk to me a little bit about that, because Gyokeres is kind of known for his kind of brute force as a goal scorer, but you think there's plenty off the ball that actually Arteta would really like about him, because that's crucial to anyone who comes in for Mikel Arteta. You've got to be able to do that stuff off the ball. And actually there's a Swedish Arsenal fan who comments a lot here on the Goonerverse. So sorry I forgot your name, but big up to you. And he was saying, look, for Sweden, he feels he sees more of the the all-round game that Gyokeres can bring than you necessarily see at Sporting. So yeah, what's maybe some of the stuff that we're missing there?
Yeah, I think he works like a dog off the ball. Like, and I think one of the things I've said with strikers is a lot of how they play, and some of their strengths is based on the upbringing and their environment. Like, for example, someone like a Watkins, right, who has had to work to get where he is. And Gyokeres is a similar example where they've not had it kind of, they've gone straight from an elite academy, and then they've bounced to another big club and then another big club. And then it's not been easy like that. They've kind of bounced around a lot of clubs, gone on loan, they've worked up the leagues. And players like that, sometimes there's an extra like aggression in them where they're going to take any little opportunity that they get, or they're going to work that extra hard. And it's not that if you come straight from elite academy or whatever that you won't, but I think there's just that extra side. You think of someone who's come from nothing, and there's someone who's come from like a privileged life. They're going to be very different in how they act in certain things, I think that's kind of the difference there. But anyways, with someone like Gyokeres, I think he works so hard off the ball. He'll put a lot of pressure on players, and he forces a lot of errors when he's pressing the defense and stuff. But there's definitely other sides to his game, which was why I would prefer Šeško. I think the positive with him is that you've got someone who wants to win now and is like more ready now. But at the same time, I think there's certain sides to him that need work, but he's older, so you don't really have time on his side. But with Gyokeres, the other side is, I think his mentality is really good, and he's someone that, when you look at his, like, he's got so much desire to get better all the time. And loads of people at Sporting have said, whether it was Amarim before or the players around, they've said like he's obsessed, like he's constantly staying later in training, like practicing shooting techniques and stuff, and he's just constantly trying to get better and like that. And I think he's got that desire in him to be a serious goal scorer. But I think there's sides to his game that are like a bit more limited compared to other players, which is why I think we might end up looking elsewhere. But it's one of those where you've got to tell the whole story, because we've not done a full breakdown on Gyokeres. Some people then think that, if you like one, that you hate the other, and that you're being harsh on the other. And it's annoying, because I'm like, I like Gyokeres and I like certain parts to his game. It's just, I think when you come at like the top level, I think there's certain parts I'm like, that's a bit of an issue. That's a bit of an issue. So is that. Even with Šeško, I'm not like 100% convinced on all of it, but I think if you give him time and a different environment, he could be the guy for us.
Yeah, you're so right about the whole. If you're favouring one, then you'll hate the other. Now, to be fair, a lot of that's driven by online stuff, because there is quite a lot of that. Some people are like, we can't sign Gyokeres, he lacks this, he lacks that. And other people are like, we can't sign Šeško, we're not serious, his goal record, whatever. And I've always said, look, going into the window, I was saying Gyokeres over Šeško because I want the win now guy, and I think I'd roll the dice. Then I spoke to you. I did a video, Graham, on AFTV. I learned about Šeško, watched some of his goals, and I thought, actually, there is something there that I just think is so undeniable. Like, I think he's going to be a top striker. And I think the way I worded it on Forever Arsenal, when I was debating with Turkish about it, I said, look, Šeško is the better fit. I'm quite confident about that. But I also said the way for me to go, Gyokeres actually, is if Arteta, not completely, but somewhat reinvents the way we play, because I think you're looking to be more direct with the Gyokeres. You're looking to play more to feed a nine with Gyokeres. Now, we do that sometimes. We look at the goals Mikel Merino scored. So quite clearly, we are capable of playing towards feeding a nine, but we've also always played towards the goals coming from a Rice, an Ødegaard, a Saka, and it being spread out. And I feel like there'd be more of a focus towards it coming from the nine if you go for a Gyokeres. But that's fine. If Arteta wants to tweak things, I've also been calling for that too. So I've that would be good to see. But yeah, interesting on the striker pursuit, and we will obviously keep an eye on it, and obviously I'll cover it here on the Goonerverse and the Goonerverse too. But let's see what happens. I still think we might be another week away from updates, and I thought the last 2 weeks were going to have significant updates, and we haven't had that. So my prediction has been wrong so far, but there we go. Let me ask you about the winger pursuit, Rodrygo and Madueke. I don't think there's a lot to say on Rodrygo because we think he's class. We've talked about him. We did the big list of wingers, didn't we? And Madueke never came up. I mean, the latest on Rodrygo is simply this, that obviously didn't come on for Real Madrid the other day, didn't start. There are still concerns in the media, and actually a lot of Madrid media kind of saying they expect him to go. Not fully saying it, but they're kind of hinting at it, and some are saying they think, it's their opinion, that maybe later in the window. So let's keep an eye on that. I do think if Rodrygo's ever going to happen, it's going to be in August. It'll take its time. But Madueke's been linked, and I don't love it. I don't love it. It's not because I don't think he's a good player. It's just another former Chelsea player. It's another Chelsea player. It's another Chelsea situation. It's another save me project a little bit. Look, tell us what we're missing here. What do you think of Noni Madueke? And do you think Arsenal are looking at him as a backup to Saka? And it looks like with Mbemo and Sane, they have been targeting that kind of player. Or actually, do they see it as a market opportunity for a slightly cheaper left winger that can grow into the player Arteta wants him to be? I mean, where do you see it?
Yeah, the interesting thing with this is some of the links that we've had have been another left-footed right winger that doesn't really play anywhere else. And I've been like, is that the right option? Because I've always felt the backup for Saka's got to be versatile, because if Saka's available, they know they're not going to play. So, and it's not that we should always play Saka. I think we should also have someone who can start ahead of him at times so he can rest as well. And then he can feel like he's got actual competition as well, which is important. But with the links to like Mbeumo, to be fair, Mbeumo is different. I think he's more versatile. He's shown that he can play through the middle, off the striker. He could probably play off the left as well. Whereas Madueke, he can play off the left. I think he's got the right skill set, but he's definitely mainly a right winger. But I don't know. Is it interesting one him, because I think he's become a bit of like a meme online. So and this happens a lot. There's certain players where people joke about them a lot. So then they highlight their flaws and then ignore their good side. And it happens a lot. Like Maguire, for example, he's always been a good player, but as soon as he became like a bit of a joke, people start then criticize him loads, and they ignore the fact that he's actually putting in good performances. So he's got a bit of that kind of about him, where the online stuff doesn't match up with how he plays. I don't think he's like a full-on save me project, because I think he's still been a decent level player. And I think when he wasn't there for Chelsea, like Palmer missing both him and then Jackson, they looked a completely different team. There's certain sides to his game I don't like as much. I think he's too shot happy at times. I think he's one of these players that has the tools to do well, but it's just little tweaks in his game. And I don't think at Chelsea he's developed enough as he could have. But I still think there's a good player in there. If you speak to anyone who's known about him since he was at Tottenham, and then when he went to PSV, like, he's always been rated very highly. And I think Chelsea probably bought him for that reason, because there was an opportunity that his value could shoot up. But I'm not a big fan of going for someone like him at like 50 million or whatever they're asking for. I feel like that's quite a lot, especially for a backup. But he is a good player. I don't subscribe to the whole like he's not a good player and we shouldn't go for someone just because they're at Chelsea. But I get why fans have that frustration, because we keep doing it. But the part of the reason it happens is they're hoarding players, so there's so many opportunities there. We're probably going to speak about a couple later as well. But they've just got so many players, and it shows you can't keep them all happy. And they're always going to be looking for someone else. So I'll promise now we'll probably sign at least one more Chelsea player in the next couple of seasons as well. People just have to deal with it.
Yeah, and you're spot on. Ultimately, who cares if they play for Chelsea or not? It's about how good the player is and whether they're going to have an impact. I think we saw that with Jorginho. A lot of people would argue we've seen it with Havertz. I think we certainly have for a little bit of time. I think my concern is more the overall package of the deal, where it's like Madueke doesn't look a £50 million player to me. He could be that, but he isn't. I don't think Havertz ever looked like a £65 million player for Chelsea. Has he for us? I'd argue probably not, but there have been spells. I totally understand. I think 2024, and I don't even mean just the end of that first season. I actually think most of 2024 he was brilliant, even into sort of October, November. Kai Havertz. So I'll give him credit where it's due. There's no doubt he's done better than I expected. Jorginho, I totally respect the signing. I think he was so much better than I ever expected him to be. But it was a backup job, and so kind of the expectations are quite low. I guess I'm saying all this to say that I've just never really been convinced by what the overall kind of impact's meant to be. And at 50 million, I've just got real concerns about it. I just look at it and think I'd rather 50 million went towards Morgan Rogers and whatever extra it's going to take, and Nwaneri covered Saka. Like, I'd rather we did that, even if we're again like, okay, there's no obvious backup for Saka. Saka's probably the only player in the squad whose like place is fully cemented. Maybe Saliba and Gabriel, but like, even Rice, will he be?
He's
6?
one of the main ones.
Yeah, even Saliba and Gabriel, like, I could see us making tweaks to the back four in a different way, but Saka will always be there, and he'll always be there on the right. So I think it's very hard to find someone who just wants to go, whenever you don't want to play him, I'll slot in. So you're going to have to make that up in having left wingers you can play on the right, or 10s like Nwaneri you can play on the right too. And Nwaneri, I think, does a great job covering for Saka. So I've called for this kind of Saka backup before, but I don't know if it comes in the form of a £50 million player. I'm not completely convinced by who's predominantly going to play on that side. One thing I'll say about Madueke is he's really impressed me on the left. I thought he looked really good playing for Chelsea out on the left, and I've wanted Arsenal to have options of players playing on their favoured foot on those sides. So let's say we started the game with a Rodrygo on the right and Madueke on the left, so that we got another way of going around teams. I'd like to see that, because I do think we ask a lot of Martinelli and Saka constantly going on their weaker foots on the outside. So I would like Arsenal to develop that a little bit more, and I think Madueke would give us that, to be fair.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think one of the things I've mentioned, I've been thinking about recently is, a lot of the time, because we've been so used to inverted wingers, is who can suit the opposite side, like who has the right skill set. And I think he's one who does. When you look at someone like a Rafinha, why does he work well there? Well, he comes inside a lot. He likes to play around the other players. He can play almost like a 10 at times. But Madueke's got that directness that would suit playing on the opposite side, because he will drive to the byline a lot. He'll come towards goal a lot. He also shoots off his right foot as well. He's got very good ball striking off both feet. So, yeah, he's definitely a good player, and it's more kind of one where if it was 30 million, I wouldn't mind it. For 50, I've always liked Semenyo. I think he's someone that he can play on the right, but he could also play on the left, and he could probably play as like a second striker as well. Yeah. And I think for 50 million, it's less of not a risk, but he seems like a more versatile player. He's a fan of the club. The stuff he does off the ball, like his duels, everything. I think he's just like he would be a hit. So I'm kind of more, if you're going to spend that much on a backup, I'd rather someone like him, or you spend slightly more and then go for a third attacker like Xavi Simons, Morgan Rogers, who they can play all over the place and solve so many different problems. And you're going to have backup for Saka somehow there, whether it's Nwaneri or you put them out on the right, because they could do that as well, to be fair.
Yeah, agreed. Let's talk about Joel Hato, because is it Hato or Hato? How do I pronounce it?
I've heard different things. I think it's Hato. And even that,
Fine.
I think it's pronounced slightly differently. But yeah, I've been meaning to check, to be honest, because I've heard on the commentary you hear different stuff as well.
Yeah, I should really big up Max, who produces all the content here on the Goonerverse. He's Dutch. I should really be asking him for the pronunciation, so I will
Yeah,
ask him.
yeah, that would have helped. Yeah,
That would have helped. I mean, we've talked plenty about the player, so I don't know why I've never asked. It's all been over WhatsApp. So okay, I'll tell you where I am with this. Interesting that as Gehi looks set to sign for Liverpool, we supposedly have been in that race, but he thinks there's kind of more opportunities for minutes at Liverpool, which I find interesting because is that because Konate's quite injury prone and because maybe Van Dijk's aging and
maybe.
they
Yeah,
don't really have kind of we're stacked in that area. I kind of understand, but they don't really play with inverted fullbacks. So I'd argue that at Arsenal, you could easily be playing right back or left back for us and sort of slotting into a different role. I think, I don't know, stay in London, but there he's going to go to Liverpool, and who can blame
yeah,
him? Great club and great move. I think, well, it looks like he might go there. Anyway, with Hato, I think what I don't really understand is I'm seeing, and I honestly love to everyone on Twitter who's kind of telling us about these players, but I see a lot of like great things said about Hato, and I'm like, isn't that what Lewis Skelly's doing? Isn't that what Calafiori was meant to add? You know, just the season before, Kivior was doing a job at left back when we'd signed Timber, and then before that, it was Zinchenko. Before that, it was Kieran Tierney, who actually then played some minutes in the last campaign in a completely different way to how we use anyone else. I'm starting to get a little bit wound up by this whole left back situation. If I'm really honest, it's like,
yeah,
who do you
yeah,
want
yeah.
there, Mikel? What are you trying to do with it? Calafiori is nothing like what I expected. He's nothing like Lewis Skelly. I actually thought Calafiori's strengths would be what Lewis Skelly's been doing so well. I don't really understand it. I mean, sure, we might need some cover at left centre back, but I just don't get it. I mean, apart from he's a very talented footballer, and maybe Lewis Skelly will move into midfield. Sure, that's one way of adding another midfielder into the team, but I just don't really get it. So, can you help me understand why we would be
Yeah.
really pursuing this deal? Because I'm a bit confused.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few sides to it. I think, firstly, the whole left back situation, and a lot of people complain about why we sign another left back. The context is, I personally feel like, well, Tierney's gone. Zinchenko, I think, is going. Kivior, I think, is going.
Oh, you think
And
Kivior?
then you're
Right, so
looking
that
at
changes
that.
things. You think Kivior will go?
Yeah, I think he'll go. And I think his fee should cover most, if not all, of Hato's. I think if you put him and Zinchenko together, that'll be more than what we spend on Hato. If we go for Hato, that is, I don't know if we're going for it, but let's say we do. I think how much he would potentially cost, they would cover it, but also the wages that they would have freed up would be like way more than that he would be on. So you've actually made a positive, a profit. And I think the reason here is there's two sides to it. One, Calafiori for me has always been a centre back over a left back, and I always feel like if you look at his age, I think you're looking at a potential Gabriel successor. When you look at Gabriel's age, so Gabriel's 27, he's 23, so it's kind of more in a couple of years. If Gabriel his form starts to drop off and he's not, he's not at that same level. It's not that I'm saying that he will, but it's as a club, you've always got to have your succession players ready. It's the same with Saliba. Like if Madrid come in for him, we've not got anyone there lined up. So that's partly why I think we're potentially looking at a backup right centre back. I think it should come in a younger player than someone like Mark Gehi, but I understand why, because you want the experience and whatever. But I think with Calafiori, he's a lot better as a centre back. He offers something different, obviously, because he carries the ball so much. But I think if you then got a left back who's more defensive, that suits him because he can be the one to push up, and the left back, instead of inverting, they'll tuck inside. Kind of like what you've got with the John Stones and Nathan Ake when they were at their best. So I think that's kind of more what the plan is there. Now with Hato as a player, we've got one of the top defenders of his age just one of the top young defenders in general. He's got a blend of the technical ability and the intelligence and the defensive ability. But the thing is, I think some people love the idea of him, and then they don't watch the games and they don't see that he's not completely ready. There's some clear weaknesses there. You know, in 1v1s, he's got that eagerness to jump and go and get the ball, but sometimes he times it wrong. That's a big thing. I think as a centre back, sometimes his awareness of the back defending the back post sometimes isn't the best. But these are all things that he can work on, and I think we've seen other players really improve since they've joined or come into the first team, like a Lewis Skelly. But yeah, so he's not like he's going to come in, he's going to be world class straight away, but his potential is huge. And it's more for me about reducing the numbers and increasing the quality. So rather than having 3 injury prone left backs, you've got 2 guys that play left back. You've got Lewis Skelly and you've got Hato. And then at centre back, you've got Gabriel, then you've got Calafiori. At right back, you've got Timber, then you've got Ben White. Right centre back, Saliba. The only other one's Tomiyasu, but if we can get someone else there, then you've got your 2 there. So that's kind of more where I think we're working towards. And when you look at that, it then makes sense because you're thinking, well, there's a left back there and we also need a right centre back. Then your defence is done, completely done. Then we don't have to sign anyone for a long time. But also having someone like Hato with the potential that he's got, it might set up nicely Lewis Skelly moving into midfield. So that's another positive later down the line. But, let's see. It's an exciting link because I think he's more dynamic. He could be the overlapping option. But he does do that for Ajax this season. So he's a very different player to Lewis Skelly, even though he has some similarities. But yeah, he's got so much potential. I've been a fan of him for a long time. I watched him in the Ajax's academy before he made his debut. So he's one that I've spoken about for a while as an option for us before. To be fair, I thought Lewis Skelly could play left back. So it's around the same sort of time where I was thinking those 2 would be nice options. So let's see if it happens.
We could have both. All right, let's see. Okay, let's talk Thomas Partey then, because we did a video on the Goonerverse last week, and it was all about how Arsenal replaced Thomas Partey, but I didn't look at it in terms of real names. I'm going to touch on Lucien Agume, who's been mentioned in The Athletic again this morning. I did it more from the perspective of squad building and understanding why maybe we don't have to go like for like, and actually we can cover the 6 in lots of different ways, but more so that I'd like Arsenal to have lots of different solutions to the problems they might face, whether that's Morgan Rogers playing as a right 8, bombing up and down the pitch, or as a left 8 in the way that Arteta tried to use Smith Rowe, or, you can have games where it's Ødegaard, Rice, Zubimendi. You can have games where it's Rice at the base with a Waneri and an Ødegaard. I want Arsenal to have lots of different things they can do. But in terms of actual names to replace Thomas Partey, because I think Arsenal will go down the route of a like for like, or as much like for like as they can. I don't think they're going to find the same quality and experience, but can they find a similar profile? You've broken this down. I mean, you've done some amazing research. A big thank you, guys. Hit the like button for Ben, because he has just done some amazing research here on the players that could be available. And you've broken it down into expensive and unlikely players, Premier League opportunities, potential value across Europe, that's who are ready now, and you've got prospects as well. So we'll go through each category, and I'll kind of let you take it away and let me know which players you want to talk about. Let's talk about the fun ones, the expensive but unlikely, the ones that are all like, we're bringing this guy. Where would you like to start with this one? Because there's some names I really like.
Yeah, I think with this one, with this amount of money that they would all cost, how can I put it? I don't think we would do them this summer because we're going to be spending most of the money on the attack, but they're the right type of player that we should be looking at. But I think with how much Zubimendi will cost, and let's say Šeško and Rodrygo, if it's those 2 that we're going for, I don't know if you've got above 50 million to spend on another midfielder.
Especially if we get Madueke for 50.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like this is what I
Yeah.
mean. It starts to add up, and you think, well, you
Yeah.
might end up having to go for a cheaper option here. Um, but yeah, so some of these guys, I mean, Frankie De Jong is one that we've been linked with, like, it seems like every single summer for a long time. And I think sometimes people forget how good he is because you're just tired of hearing a link. But
Mm.
he's seriously good. If you hear, there was an interview recently of Amadou Onana, and he said who's some of the best players he's come up against, and he mentioned De Jong because he's like his engine, how good he is technically, how quickly he can close you down. Like he's just everywhere, and he's the type who can just run a game and make so many touches and everything. But he's so progressive on the ball as well. So he's like he's such a I don't know. There's such a feeling of like a old Wenger sign in there. Like he feels like an Arsenal player that has just never played for Arsenal. Um, but yeah, I don't think that will happen just because of his wages, and then
Yeah.
that's where it's more expensive. It's not necessarily the fee. But yeah,
Mm.
and then
Class.
so the other two that there was like two parts of this category where one is like either they're really expensive and we just wouldn't do it now, or they're expensive but we're like, would they even be available? We're not too sure. So um, obviously there's Palacios, Leverkusen. He's someone who I think is a bit of an underrated option. I think because of his injury record, is maybe something we won't look at as much. But the interesting thing with him is I've seen him play as a deep midfielder and seen him play as a 10 or an 8. He's played all over the place, but he's such a like well-rounded player. Um, Again, just like really press resistant, very progressive on the ball. He's got more of that aggression off the ball as well compared to someone like De Jong. He's just like genuinely, if he was playing in the Premier League, people would be speaking about him way more and a lot higher than some of the other names around. Um, and then the third one in this part was Carlos Baleba. I mean, everyone knows about him. Like he's unreal. He's got that when Partey was at his best, when there's so much space in behind, his like ground coverage, like how quickly he would catch up with attackers. It's that type of midfielder. You feel like you don't feel as stressed when they're playing, and you just feel like he'll sort it out. But then on the ball as well, he's got like his passing range and his ball carrying. We seem to be getting a lot more ball carriers, and that's one of the things that really I like about someone like Baleba. And he's one that I've always felt like maybe next summer, once we've sorted out the attack. But yeah, like he would be. I mean, Caicedo went for 115. I reckon. I think he's a better player than Caicedo, but I think he would go
Wow.
for 100.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he's just more well rounded. He scores goals, carries the ball. He's got the progressive passing. He's a better tackler as well. Like he's just all round better player. But yeah, he'll be like 100 million probably.
Wow. I mean, Brighton are unreal, aren't they? I mean, they just keep churning out these
Yeah,
talents, or picking them up, at a young age. And then next thing you know, clubs are lining up to spend 100 million on them. I like Baleba a lot. I love the players you've mentioned. I haven't watched as much of Palacios, but the fact that I think if they were going to do one of those deals, if in some world Arteta was like, no, I need quality for quality. If I'm losing Partey, you give me an absolute baller coming in. Then I would go. I think they would go with the player that is more likely to play other roles in the squad too, like a Palacios. If you're right, if you're saying he's played 10 and sort of more central midfield, because Baleba and De Jong may be used in a slightly different way. Baleba's left-footed, isn't he?
yeah. Which I
Yeah,
think maybe is partly why I don't know actually, but we've got a lot of left-footed players
yeah,
already. It feels like
yeah,
there's a lot of overlap with Lewis Skelly with Baleba.
sure.
That's why I thought maybe we might look in a slightly different direction. But as a
Yeah,
player, he's elite level for me.
fair. There's Premier League opportunities too. if you don't mind, I'm just going to read the list that you sent me. So you've got Amadou
Yeah, yeah.
Onana, Boubacar Kamara, Andre Santos, Leslie Ugo Chukwu, and Christian Norgaard, of course, has been linked, to be fair, from Brentford. If Arsenal were to do one of those, I'd actually expect it to be a Norgaard. I think for whatever reason, we've got good relationships with Brentford.
Yeah.
It might be a move he'd want to do. He comes in to play a very particular role in the squad, which is essentially cover and sort of, what's that? Was it a £20 million signing? Maybe. I mean, I don't want to insult Brentford when I say that. He's a good player. I like him, but it feels like maybe that kind of opportunity deal. Maybe they'd want more because he's an important player for them. What do you think of the Norgaard links? And tell me about some of those other players on the list, because I know Andre Santos as well. Chelsea fans have been getting a bit of a look at him, haven't they? I think at the Club World Cup. I think. What was your kind of feeling on those players, but Norgaard in particular?
Yeah, I think Norgaard for a while, he had his contract, I'm sure, was about to expire this summer, but I think he then had a extension at some point earlier this year. So he is one that we would have to buy. I'm not a fan personally. I get why. Maybe you go for an older option just for like a year, and then when one of the prospects or one of these bigger names becomes available, we're able to just say, we've got space for you. So as a stopgap, maybe. But I also think as a club, we need to kind of move away from this where their value is only going to go down. You can still get a stopgap who their value is going to go up, whether it's a kind of more around the 20 to 23 age, where in a year or two, they're going to be a better player, or someone kind of more at their peak, but they're not one of the higher profile names, so they should still be cheaper. So I'm not a fan really of going for him. But the other names, I mean, they're all good players, and I think they all have very different uses. Onana and Kamara, the reason why I put them in there is more because Villa's financial situation, the PSR stuff, we don't know who's going to become available, and they're both players that could play for any team in this league. And Kamara they got for free, so that makes me think they might look at him as someone that they're going to make an actual profit off. So yeah, let's see. But I think out of all of them, if I was to choose one, it would be Andre Santos. He's someone I like since he was in Brazil. I don't know, it's a weird one that I feel like Chelsea aren't going to play him, when I think he would take out either of the two in midfield. On ability, he should take out one of Enzo Fernandez or Moises Caicedo in the midfield. I think he's just like, I compare him a lot sometimes to Bruno Gyokeres because it helps people think of the player, where he could play as a deeper midfielder. He's got that ability on the ball. He's press resistant. He's progressive. He's a very good ball winner, very good jeweler. I think he's one of the top in terms of winning ground duels in Liga. I think so. I'm sure he's ranked very highly at least. So he can play as a DM, and he has before many times. He's more of a double pivot player, but at the same time, as a number 8, he gets in the box a lot. He's got a real presence in the box. He's got the ball striking off both feet. So you've got someone there who very versatile, and Chelsea got him for less than 10 million. So he's someone that I think if you go in for 30, 40 million, you might, you start the conversation. You might be able to get him for about that. I think they might be trying to get about 50, but who knows, you could get somewhere in between. But he's someone that I look at and think he will be at one of the top clubs. I think Bayern and PSG have been linked a lot, so I think he might end up going there, to be honest. But he's like he'll play for Brazil. He'll be one of the main midfielders for Brazil and all that. So he's definitely someone that we should be considering at least, even though he's more of a number 8, but he's just a do-it-all midfielder. He could play either role.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Let's see another Chelsea player. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, you've got potential value options across Europe that are ready now. Manu Kone, This is one of those that I've always tentatively put his name out there because Football Manager rates him so highly. And I'm like, but I
Yeah.
haven't watched that much of him outside of YouTube comms. But hey, I back Football Manager's scout reports. I'm just going to say that. Lucien Agume, of course, has been linked a lot. And I know that I actually referenced your thread on X about how Agume and Zubimendi were the Jorginho and Partey replacements from back in January. You posted that, so there we go. Ben Mattinson's done it again. Javi Guerra, I know because of again Football Manager, and he was at Valencia, and young midfielder, 6'2", I think, if I'm getting that right. And Lamine Camara,
maybe 3.
I'm no expert on him. So tell me about these 4 and who's your favourite in terms of these potential value options across Europe.
Yeah, my favourite, and just like a personal favourite, not someone that I think we will go for, is Lamine Camara. Again, just because I've seen him before when he was at the Senegal's youth team, and I think, trying to think when it was also at AFCON as well, but he's played it for the youth as well. But he's so impressive, and he's gone through the pathway at Generation Foot, and then they go from Senegal, then they go to Metz in the French league. Played for them, and they got relegated, and I was like, he's a massive opportunity. Someone should go for him. No one did. He went to Monaco for like less than 10 million, and he's done really well. Become basically their best player, to be honest, like one of their most consistent players. But in terms of who I think we would probably go for, it's probably more, well, I'll touch on Kone. I think he's really developed this season since he's gone to Roma. He's someone who's always needed that move to really step up. And I think a lot more people will be speaking about him the next year, because it looks Gasparini's going to Roma. So, and some of the midfielders that have been at Atalanta have always improved a lot. You think of someone like Edison, Man City have been linked to him. So, one to look out for in the near future. As a real option of like as a playmaker, but ball winner, good carrier as well. But the two, Agume and Javi Guerra, that we have been linked with, and Atletico, Berta looked at Guerra when he was at Atletico as well. So I thought maybe that might be something that we'll do as well. And it's been quite interesting for Spain's under-21s at the under-21 Euros. He's played as a slightly deeper midfielder at times. Sometimes it's kind of a mixture between an 8 and a 6. Sometimes he's the deepest midfielder, playing it through the lines, and sometimes he's slightly higher up, receiving the ball on the half turn and then progressing the ball. I think he could be either. I think he's too good at both to kind of nail him down to one, which is kind of an interesting profile where you think he could play with either Rice or Zubimendi and offer something different. But I think Agume is the main name that we've heard about, and I think the big positive with him is the value seems to be quite low, and Sevilla also like Sambi Lokonga. So maybe you do something there with Sambi where you send him out there on a cut price, so we can get Agume for a cut price or whatever it is. He has a really well-rounded number 6 profile. He doesn't offer much in the final third, which is the downside to him, which is partly why I prefer others. But as a ball winner, his security on the ball, how well he is at sitting deep and screening the back line. He's very good in 1v1s as well, defensively. I think there's a lot to like about him, and I've liked him for a while. It's funny because he was at Inter for a long time and wasn't really given opportunity. He was just loaned out a lot. And I mentioned him, I think it was January 23, as a potential, when you're picking up someone in January who might be of value down the line. I mentioned him as a understudy like go for a party understudy or something. But here we are now. But let's see. I think there seems to be a lot of legs to it. Like I don't know. Don't have inside information or anything. But he's the same agent as Saliba, so I don't know if it's the agent doing something here, which is where these links have come from. But very good player. I still like the links.
I mean, firstly, a football club needs to hire you. that needs to happen. So fair play to you again, man. I mean, because some of these names, they go back to January, maybe the year before. So fair play to you. The Agume stuff is the only player that Athletic are really talking about, and that makes me think, okay, when the Athletic kind of get hold of a name like last summer, I know we didn't sign him, but they were just constantly mentioning Johan Garcia, and I was like, no one else is really talking about this. Why is that? And it turns out, it's because Arsenal did really want him, even if they didn't do the deal. Also, isn't there something in this Lokonga thing whereby we've extended Lokonga's contract by a year? Obviously, he was just at Sevilla. If I'm not mistaken, I read somewhere that Sevilla did want to keep him. So is there a way we can kind of use Lokonga in this? So maybe that's partly driving it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think because we extended for a year, so we could still sell him. I don't think we'll get much for him, but if they're interested and they have a player that we're interested in, it seems quite natural that, and we also need a player in that position. Seems quite natural that we'd go for him. For anyone who's not watched much of him, he's still playing at the under 21 Euros. France have got into the semi-final, so if anyone wants to watch him, go watch that semi-final. It'll be an interesting game anyways. There's a lot of good players on show. Matisse Tell's done really well as well, and Tiano Barry's a striker I really like for them as well. But as a whole, it's good to see them at that level because you see a bit more when they're amongst their peers at the same level. You can see who stands out more. And it's on people in the UK, it's on like Channel 4, so you can watch it on your online or anywhere. You can watch previous games as well on there. But it could be a real opportunity for the value and the right type of player. And he's someone who offers something different to a Lewis Skelly. So if Lewis Skelly moves into midfield, he's a lot more like constantly going to break the lines. He's going to carry the ball. He's got, although he could be a 6, he's got more of like number 8 tendencies where he's going to want to bring the ball out of midfield. Whereas Agume's like, he will stay deep as the deepest midfielder and allow others to go forward.
Okay. I was just having a look at the under, I've barely followed the under 21 Euros. I really should have followed it more. But yeah, fair play to England. They're looking quite good apparently. Well, from a scoring perspective, from a results perspective, anyway. Like I said, I haven't watched a minute of it. But okay, and then finally, the final 5 minutes of the show, prospects. You got Ayub Buadi, and I've seen you tweet about him. Valentin Atangana Edoa, I hope I pronounced that right, and Mark Bernal of Barcelona, but you'd have to put that it's unlikely they'd sell. Go on. These are the prospects then. And I feel like Arsenal would be looking at that potential value or prospect. So what do you make of these three? Do you think there's one there Arsenal should do?
Yeah. So one of the things I like with the previous list is that they're kind of a nice middle ground between a prospect and someone who's ready now. So they're a bit more ready to come in, but there's also potential there. And kind of like what we were saying before about signing someone who, even if they aren't the guy in a year or two down the line, you can sell them for a good profit and they can fund the transfer of a big name, whether it's like a, Tchouameni, Camavinga, Zaire Emery, one of those type of guys that might become another Rodrygo opportunity or whatever. But the prospects, Buadi is someone who, if you could get him now, he'd be ready now. He's that good, and he's broke into the first team, I think, when he was 15. Played a little bit when he was 15, and then definitely 16. Lille.
Okay.
He played in Europa. I want to say Europa Conference League, or is it Europa League? But really young, and he was so impressive from then. And I watched a bit of him previously when he was at the youth level, and the interesting thing with him was he used to be an attacking midfielder. Reminds me of Wharton in a similar way, where he was an attacking midfielder and then grew quite a lot, was a lot taller, and moved deeper. And you can see it in how he plays, because he's a lot more forward thinking, gets on the ball, wants to play it through the lines. He can carry, he's really like springy, he's really like athletic. He's a lot like a Frankie de Jong, if people want a comparison. But for me, he's way better defensively. Like his tackling technique is really good. He's got that thing where when certain players, when the attacker gets ahead of them, but they've got such long legs, they can just reach around and just sweep the ball, but then stay on their feet. Like, exactly. And he does it sometimes where he gets the ball, stays on his feet, and then carries away with it. And you're like, wow, like that was unreal. And he's got that to him as well.
Yeah, Rice and Calafiori are the two players I think of with that tackling technique, that ability, because Calafiori's been criticised defensively a little bit since he got to Arsenal, but I actually think his tackling technique has been very, very impressive. And him and Rice are the two that I look at that they're able to do that pretty impressively during Timber. But I think of those two.
Yeah, definitely. And having someone who can do that, but then on the ball, he's also like a really good carrier as well. So calm under pressure, really press resistant. I mean, to put it in perspective, in the Champions League this season, he played against Real Madrid, and it was actually his 17th birthday. So he just turned 17 on the day, and he was like one of the best players on the pitch. Like, he just looked like he was like 25 in his peak or whatever. And one of the exciting things about him is you're talking about one of the best young talents just in general, and in his position, obviously, as well. So if you can get ahead of other teams, that is a big if. I think PSG will be there because he's in France. Many other teams, I think Bayern have been linked before. Madrid, I think, maybe have been linked before. But I think when you look at where we are, we've got a spot for another midfielder, and you could say to him, look, you're going to be the star, and you're going to be there with the, Lewis Skelly, Ranieri, Dalman. You're one of those type of players that's going to be the future of the club. But the downside with him is because he's not turned 18 yet, he does, after the transfer window, I think he's like around October, you can't officially sign someone until that. So I don't think we'll be able to get him till January. So that kind of then creates we can't sign him till then. But on ability, he and price and everything, he would be like my number one out of a lot of these options. The other one, Atangana Adoa. The interesting thing with him is his team got relegated, and not a lot of people will watch them. Rems, he's one of those players that if you regularly watch them, you'll notice him. But if you don't, then you won't. There's not like any underlying data or anything that just really, really stands out or anything like that. But he's someone that I've watched for France's youth team. He's just a name that I think people should look out for. He's probably one that we won't go for, that I think we should, because he'll go for next to nothing. Kind of like what I said with Lamine Camara, where he went for less than 10 million and now you're talking 40, 50 to get him. He's that sort of player, and it's not anything to do with ability. It's just hype and the team he plays for, and not a very good financial situation, getting relegated, all of that stuff. But he's literally played he's even filled in at centre back against PSG, and it was 0-0, and he was one of the best players on the pitch. And those games are always a good way to test how good someone is. But for France, they're under 19s. He's been the captain. He's highly thought of in France outside of the club he's at. So he's someone who, as a ball carrier and ball winner, he reminds me a lot of like Timber and Lewis Skelly, where he's very good at really compact and he can just kind of steal the ball and then carry away and in a really nice way, but also how he like uses his hands and arms to like hold off defenders, and is really good at winning duels as well, which is obviously a big bonus. So he's someone that ticks like pretty much every box you want in a number 6. And as a ball progressor as well. He's a little bit more like he favours the passes through the lines to the long passes, but he can do both still. This is just one of those niche names that we probably won't even hear, but he's a real opportunity that I don't know why a lot of teams aren't really talking about, like looking at heavily.
Yeah.
But I think we'll probably end up looking at Agume. He's the main name that's been linked. If Partey goes, we still don't know, but there's some decent options out there for me. Yeah,
there are. We've gone through a lot of names there, so big thank you, Ben, for your research and for your insight on all these players, because I could never have done this. This is years of you watching players and hours of watching and understanding. So I'm super grateful that you're coming here on the Goonerverse to give us your thoughts and insight on all these players. I agree with you. I think they'll go for the Agume type, and we very much talked kind of mostly like for like in this list of players that you brought through, because we're talking about quite literally replacing Partey. But I think if Arsenal can evolve their midfield, I still like the idea of going for players who can play in a different way and give us different answers to different solutions, because I think in Rice and Zubimendi, you've got quite a lot covered there. Even if the two of them will play together a lot, I still think there's other ways Arsenal can rotate and keep that 6th position quite fresh throughout the season. Good to break that down. Thank you so much for joining me, mate. We'll be back next week. There'll be more content across the Goonerverse. And as always, guys, I put his Twitter handle or X handle, Ben's, in the comment section below. I'll put it in the comment section, I'll put it in the description is where I normally leave it. Go check out the amazing work, because there's almost daily threads and information on players, and I think it's important we're all taking it in and understanding exactly who these players are out there that everyone's talking about, so we're familiar when and if Arsenal go for them. But Ben, a big thank you to you, mate.
Cheers. Appreciate it. Interesting to go through and speak about like how many different options there would be, and making sense of why we won't go for a lot of them. I think there's a lot here that they would be suitable, but there's many reasons why we won't. But let's see what happens there, and hopefully next time we'll have something more to speak about, something actually done and dusted for once.
Very true. Honestly, we could do that, but I'm still hopeful the next 2-3 weeks can ramp up. I said that last time, so here we go. How many times did I fall for it? Ben, big thanks, mate. Everyone will be back this week with some videos. Remember the Goonerverse 2 to keep you up to date with all the latest news. Why have I uploaded or barely uploaded on that channel the last few days? Because nothing is happening. There's no new information. I can't keep telling you all the same stuff. Sesko talks supposedly, Gyokeres talks supposedly. They want to choose between the two. Rodrygo, they want, if they can do the deal at some point this summer, we might want a defender, and Kepa's coming. I don't really know what more to tell you, people. So Zubimendi might wear number 36. There you go. There's an update. So a big thanks, Ben. I really appreciate it. Big thanks to all of you. And we'll be back, as and when there's information to tell you all about. And obviously this podcast will be back next week as well. Catch you all in a bit.